I have long known that my girlfriend of 7 years and her childhood sweetheart have an inseparable bond. But I think, as long as she is willing to marry me, I will forgive her. However, at the wedding, when her childhood sweetheart Leo came to crash the wedding, he looked at Ivy Lou, I'm late, will you come with me? I unconsciously gripped Ivy Lou's hand, pleading with her not to leave. She unhesitatingly released my hand. Later, she knelt in the rain and begged me to return to her side. I shook off his hand in disgust, leaving with my newlywed wife without looking back. This trash, I don't even want her to touch me. Mr. Jason Song, would you like Ms. Ivy Lou to become your wife? The grand wedding hall, all the guests holding their breath to witness this romantic moment. I gazed at Ivy Lou with deep affection, as she looked divine like a celestial being today. I unhesitatingly answered, I do. Father, turning to Ivy Lou, do you take Jason Song to be your husband? Ivy Lou seemed to be thinking about something, her expression hesitant and her gaze avoidant. Her eyes frequently looked towards the tightly closed palace gates, as if she was waiting for someone. Suddenly, countless people in the hall began to whisper. I was startled, but I gently took her hand and guided her tenderly. After a long while, she finally spoke up again. I wish. Her voice was interrupted by the sudden sound of a door opening, which sounded particularly jarring in the quiet hall. She doesn't want to. Leo barged in without any hesitation. He could be said to be dressed in his finest, wearing a pristine white wedding suit, holding a bouquet of flowers, and appearing even more well-suited than I, the groom, Ivy Lou. There was no trace of embarrassment or guilt on his face, replaced by a smug and confident demeanor. He looked at Ivy Lou, I'm late, would you like to come with me? My mind went blank. I couldn't believe he would openly steal the wedding. I said that Leo is a well-known young master in the entertainment circle in Beijing. He definitely won't let Ivy Lou marry this playboy. Indeed, this Mr. Song is not even worth a piss, and he should take a good look at himself. If it weren't for Leo going abroad for medical treatment, would it have been his turn? This is the young miss of the Lou family. Ivy Lou and Leo look so well-matched standing together. The lobby was suddenly in an uproar, and the guests' whispers made me cringe. Oddly enough, what they said was true. I fully understand that I have no chance against Leo in the eyes of Ivy Lou. I unconsciously gripped Ivy Lou's hand, pleading with her not to leave. Ivy Lou, no. She unhesitatingly let go of my hand. Sorry, Jason Song. Her delicate face was no longer burdened with worries, and she ruthlessly pried a few of my fingers apart, as if shaking off some troublesome trash, then picked up her wedding dress and ran towards Leo without looking back. My whole body's blood seemed to stop flowing in an instant, my body icy cold as if falling into an ice cave, staring blankly as this pair of wall people left hand in hand, rushing towards their own happiness. Before I could dismiss the guests, the news of Ivy Lou's elopement was splashed across the front pages, with the media outlets vying to report on it, and the Liu stock plunging to a new low. I returned to the wedding suite we had prepared long ago in a daze. The vivid red 11 characters on the wall painfully pierced my eyes, as if mocking my audacity. I sat on my marriage bed all night waiting for Ivy Lou to return. Not until noon the next day did the sound of the door opening resonate through the entryway. Ivy Lou wore a bright new outfit that I had never seen her wear before, looking radiant. And me, pale complexion, bloodshot eyes, as if he had aged 10 years overnight. Ivy Lou walked up to me, seemingly concerned, and placed her hand on my knee. Jason Song, how are you? Don't wait for my response, she continued. Jason Song, would you please explain to the public? I did not run away from the wedding, it was all a misunderstanding, and we will soon have a new wedding ceremony, okay? I calmly looked at her. Why? You know, Leo has just recovered from a serious illness and cannot tolerate any stimulation. We can get married after he fully recovers. After all these years together, she never cared when I was sick and hospitalized. I have never dared to question her, because I know that comparing myself to Leo is courting disaster. The bond that they have built since childhood is something I can never match. I thought to myself in self-deception that as long as Ivy Lou was willing to marry me, then she must have me in her heart, but the facts have shown that I was wrong, terribly wrong. I blinked hard, holding back the tears. What if I don't? Ivy Lou impatiently brushed away my hand. Jason Song, you should not refuse to drink when offered. You issued a statement that caused Liosher's stock to rise, and when we get married, you will also benefit, won't you? Look, she cares about Liugu until now, cares about stocks, but doesn't care about me at all. 7 years, I have been with her for 7 years, in her eyes I will never compare to Liugu and her company. Marriage, will we still get married? It was all just an excuse for her to steady me. I cannot possibly marry her again, even if she wants to get married. The tides of time have turned, and the heart has grown cold as ashes. I no longer bother with her, and stand up to leave the room. She panicked for some reason and grabbed my wrist. Jason Song, where are you going? Is it any of your business? She used a lot of force with her hands, trying to pull me back. Stop making a fuss. I've already said that as long as you issue a statement, we will still get married. I couldn't bear it anymore, and I slapped her. Enough, Ivy Lou. From the moment you fled your wedding, we no longer have a relationship. I don't want to see you again. He left, slamming the door. It's raining heavily, with lightning and thunder. I am soaked to the bone and shivering all over, and what is even colder than my body is my heart. The ringtone of my mobile phone kept ringing, and I knew it was Ivy Lou calling me without even looking. The words "wife" pierced my eyes, and in a fit of anger, I threw my phone into the muddy ground. That phone was given to me by Ivy Lou at the beginning. She specifically bought the couple's model, one for her and one for me. And now, I return her my phone along with my love in its entirety. As I was walking aimlessly on the road, suddenly a blinding white light from afar and an urgent honking sound that almost shattered my eardrums. Before I could react, a violent impact was felt in my lower abdomen, and then I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed, and the slightest movement caused pain throughout my body. I heard the faint sound of keyboard tapping in my ear, and I looked around to find the source of the sound. It's her. Vicky Yen looked up from the computer in front of her and was pleasantly surprised to see that I had woken up. You're awake. Vicky Yen was my high school classmate, and is now Ivy Lou's business rival. We were on good terms when we were in high school, although we weren't particularly close, but at least we could greet each other when we met. But since I have been with Ivy Lou, I have not spoken a single word with her, and even at the request of Ivy Lou, I deleted all her contact information. Vicky Yen knew about Ivy Lou's elopement at our wedding, so she naturally guessed why I would go out alone in such terrible weather. She has been very attentive to my emotions and has never brought up the matter at all. The doctor came over quickly and performed a simple examination on me. The doctor said that it's a good thing it was a rainy day, as the car was not going fast, and the injuries are mostly just bruises and abrasions. The patient can be discharged after a few more days of observation. Vicky Yen asked the doctor many questions with great concern, such as whether she could move and whether she could eat normally. The doctor gave a helpless smile, saying that it was just a superficial injury, and as long as it didn't hurt, she could move, and she could eat whatever she wanted, as long as she didn't overdo it. The doctor's eyes darted between the two of us, joking, "You two haven't been together for long, have you? Look how worried you are about your girlfriend." I was just about to deny it, but Vicky Yen spoke first. "Yes, it really scared me to death." Vicky Yen saw the doctor off, came to my side, carefully propped up the pillow for me so I could lean on the bed. The entire process was incredibly gentle, as if she was afraid of hurting me even slightly. "Are you hungry? What do you want to eat? I'll go buy it." Her voice was gentle, the gentlest I had ever heard. Ivy Lou had never spoken to me in such a tone before. Her appearance is as gentle and graceful as her voice, and being with her is as comfortable as a spring breeze. I told her that I wanted to drink century egg and lean pork congee, which was the congee I used to like to drink in high school. But since I later found out that Ivy Lou doesn't like it, I've never drunk it again. Vicky Yen paused for a moment, then lightly pursed her lips and smiled, saying okay, wait for me, I'll be right back, and left. I watched her departing figure with a transfixed gaze. When Vicky Yen returned, I was about to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. Actually, my activities are not that restricted now, but I still scared her a bit. She quickly put down the food she was holding, and hurried over to help me. How do you get out of bed by yourself? What if you fall? I looked at her amused. Just a few superficial injuries. I said that and wanted to push her away to prove to her that I could walk on my own, but she stubbornly refused to let go and insisted on seeing me to the bathroom. In the jostling, my foot got caught on the bed frame, and I slipped and fell without realizing it. In that split second when we fell, because Vicky Yan's hand was tightly gripping my arm, she hadn't had time to react and ended up falling to the ground with me. Fortunately, I was the one underneath, so that I didn't let a young lady get crushed by an old man like me. Her cheeks suddenly collided with my chest, so soft it was unbelievable, causing my heart to race. Vicky Yan quickly realized what happened and immediately apologized to me. She then lifted her head and tried to get off me. Just as she lifted her head, the tip of her nose grazed my jawline, followed by a softer, more moist sensation. After realizing what it was, my face suddenly flushed, and my mind went blank, not knowing how to react. Vicky Yen was obviously no better than me, just standing there motionless. Our noses were less than 5 centimeters apart, our increasingly heavy breathing intertwining in the air, even causing the room temperature to rise by a few degrees. She stared at me motionlessly, her eyes filled with complex emotions that I couldn't decipher, and a slowly rising desire. I'm not a young man who has never been in love. I know very well what that look in a woman's eyes means, but I still didn't move, perhaps because my body hadn't reacted yet, or perhaps because I wanted to see what she wanted to do. I don't know when her hand had already rested on my shoulder. The warmth of her palm through the thin clothes made my ears turn red. Her fiery gaze followed my eyes, crossed my nose bridge, and finally settled on my lips. Under her gaze, I unconsciously licked my dry lips, and her gaze visibly darkened. She swallowed unconsciously, and kissed me as if she had lost her mind. Her lips were softer and sweeter than I had imagined, making it impossible to resist the urge to delve deeper. My hands couldn't help but press against the back of her head, wanting to take more. The room was filled with the embarrassingly loud sounds of water. I don't know how long it has been, but the redness on Vicky Yan's face has not yet subsided, and she is lying on my chest, panting. I gently patted her back to help her catch her breath. After a long while, she finally lifted her head, looking at me with wet, glassy eyes. I'm sorry, Jason Song. I gently pressed my thumb against her swollen lips, a work of my own. You have done nothing wrong. But you and Ivy Lu. I have broken up with her. Her eyes suddenly shone brightly. In that moment, it seemed as if everything around her had lost its color, and I was the only one left in her entire world. Are you serious? I couldn't help but lean in and give her a little kiss on the corner of her mouth when I saw her adorable face. Of course, why would you keep that kind of woman around for the new year? We kissed again. We quickly established our relationship. She stopped going to the company to take care of me and stayed by my bedside in the hospital. I told her many times that I was fine and could take care of myself, but she was still worried. Later, she directly had her assistant move all the office documents to the hospital room, and she even conducted video conferences right in front of me without any reservations. When Ivy Lu barged in, Vicky Yan was sitting on my lap and kissing me. Leo Gu also came along. Jason, I heard that you all are doing something. Vicky Yan was interrupted and looked impatient. Who let you in? I gently wiped the moisture from the corner of her mouth. Leo Gu was fanning the flames on the sidelines. What a pair of adulterous lovers, actually having an affair in the hospital. Ivy Lu didn't hesitate to come over and try to pull Vicky Yan. I was quick to protect Vicky Yan, grabbing Ivy Lu's wrist and throwing her to the ground. Enough, Ivy Lu. This is a hospital, don't make a scene anymore. Ivy Lu's eyes were red, filled with anger and resentment. What's going on? What were you two just doing? We have broken up, and what I do has nothing to do with you. She glanced at Vicky Yen. You know that I don't get along with her. Oh, you deliberately called her to get at me, didn't you? You're incredible. Can you stop flattering yourself? She completely ignored what I was saying and remained absorbed in her own world. I've told you so many times, I'm not breaking up with you. As soon as Liu Gu's illness is completely cured, we'll get married. Vicky Yan's abrupt laughter resounded in the room. Ivy Liu, I know you are stupid, but I didn't know you were this stupid, that you were actually able to be fooled by such clumsy tricks for so many years. Coincidentally, this is a hospital. You can take your little lover here to check if he is actually ill or not. Liu Gu was panic-stricken. After being together, Vicky Yen accompanied me to many places. I actually really enjoy traveling, but ever since I've been with Ivy Liu, I haven't been able to go out anymore. She's always saying she's too busy with work and doesn't have time to accompany me. However, Vicky Yen can put aside all her work and patiently accompany me anywhere. I told her I like the sea, and she took me to the seaside in different parts of the world to play. She would smile and help me wipe the ice cream from the corner of my mouth, carefully apply sunscreen for me, and sit with me by the sea to quietly enjoy the sunset. As night fell, Vicky Yen mysteriously told me that she had a surprise for me. She covered my eyes from behind, and I walked a distance on the beach following her instructions, then stood still at a certain spot. She put down her hand. Okay, open your eyes. I was shocked by the scene before me. Hundreds of glowing balloons took to the sky in an instant as I opened my eyes, and thousands of dazzling red roses on the beach formed a giant heart, in the center of which stood a beautiful bride in a wedding dress. Countless people were stunned by the scene before them, and many stopped to take photos. Vicky Yen, holding a bouquet of flowers, picked up the microphone. Jason Song, I know you've always longed for a perfect wedding. I will fulfill all that others couldn't give you. She slowly walked towards me, knelt on one knee in front of me, and presented a ring. Love beneath the sea. I was surprised to see this ring. 2 years ago I saw it at an auction, and I really liked it at the time, wanting Ivy Liu to buy it for me, but Ivy Liu said it wasn't worth spending a few million to buy a ring, and I only know that in the end it was bought by a mysterious person. I didn't expect that mysterious person to be Vicky Yen. Apparently, she had been following me for 2 years. Jason Song, will you marry me? Vicky Yen looked at me anxiously. We embrace the blessings of people around the world. That day when returning home, after getting off the plane, Vicky Yen went to the restroom, and I walked out alone. The further I walked, the more crowded it became, and there were quite a few reporters with cameras filming me. At first I thought it was another surprise prepared by Vicky Yen, but as I walked, it became more and more wrong, until I saw Ivy Liu. She wore a large red dress, holding a large bouquet of roses, and was very conspicuous in the crowd. As soon as I went out, all the reporters surrounded me, but they also tactfully made way for Ivy Liu. She walked up to me swaying, and handed me the rose. Welcome home, my fiancé. For a moment, countless flashes of light were directed at me and Ivy Liu, making it impossible for me to open my eyes. Wow. It was all a misunderstanding. It is what it is. They have been dating for 7 years. How could Ivy Liu possibly not want Jason Song? They look absolutely perfect together. Ivy Liu is practically the nation's ideal wife. She never abandons even someone as ordinary as Jason Song. I finally managed to open my eyes, suppressing the anger in my heart. I'm sorry everyone, we've broken up. She was about to leave this shameful place, but was stopped by Ivy Liu. Jason, please don't be angry, okay? I have already known that Liu Gu has been deceiving me all along, and I will never meet him again. Can you please give me another chance? We can go to the Civil Affairs Bureau and get the marriage certificate right now. The onlooking reporters and curious bystanders started cheering upon hearing those words. Marry her. Marry her. Marry her. At that moment, a familiar touch came from my arm. Vicky Yen put one hand on my arm and unabashedly pushed Ivy Liu's hand away with the other. She faced the cameras without any hesitation, confident and bold. Thank you all for gathering here today. I also have a good news to announce. She looked at me gently, her eyes full of love. I and Jason Song have already gotten engaged, and we will invite everyone to join us for our wedding celebration. The scene erupted in an instant. We raised our palms to display the engagement rings for the media to take photos. What's going on? What? Ivy Lou has become the third party from the main wife. No wonder she asked us to come. She just wanted others to see there were many people so they wouldn't feel comfortable refusing her. When did Ivy Lou ever suffer such a humiliation on a big stage? Her face turned as red as a baboon's buttocks. She pointed at Vicky Yen and yelled furiously, "She is the third party. Even before we broke up, she was flirting with Jason Song in the hospital." I was so angry that I almost couldn't catch my breath, and when I went up to her, I slapped her. First, from the moment you ran away from your wedding, we broke up. Secondly, you're allowed to have an affair, but I'm not allowed to date other men. She looked aggrieved and incredulous. This is the second time you've hit me. You've never laid a hand on me before. You're no different from an unreasonable little cutie right now. Vicky Yan's face turned cold because of the commotion. It was you who abandoned him in the first place, so why are you pretending to be deeply in love now? You. Vicky Yan rolled her eyes and pulled her aside. Good dogs don't block the way. A few days before the wedding, I went back to my high school alma mater with Vicky Yan. She pointed to a tall willow tree and said to me, "Do you remember? That was the place where we first met." She said that day she was carrying a stack of books to the classroom. A gentle breeze blew, and her hat was blown away. She hurriedly dropped the books all over the floor. She crouched on the ground in a sorry state picking up the books, but then a sensation came from above. A good-looking young man helped her pick up the hat and gently placed it on her head, and silently helped her pick up all the books on the ground and take them to the classroom. Without saying a word to her throughout the process, she said, "That person is me." After that, she began to notice me. I was pleasantly surprised, because Vicky Yen was a renowned beauty and academic star in high school, while I was just an ordinary boy. How could I be so fortunate to have gained her favor? That day I learned that even in the years I thought were dark and gloomy, there were people silently paying attention to me and caring about me. That day, we were strolling leisurely on the campus, but suddenly a torrential rain started pouring down. I and Vicky Yen had no choice but to take shelter under the eaves first. The rain gradually increased, and our bodies also tended to draw closer. When I came to my senses, we were already kissing. Jason Song. I was startled, seeing the person who came wanting to slash her with a knife. It's Ivy Lou again. Why is she so persistent? She was soaked to the skin and came running towards me, regardless of everything. I quickly avoided her touch. To her surprise, she suddenly knelt down on the ground. "Jason, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Can you please come back to me?" I suppressed my disgust. "Don't embarrass yourself here, Ivy Lou. Go home quickly." "I'm sorry, Jason Song. It was all my fault before. As long as we get married, I'll do whatever you say. All my property is yours. Will you come back to me?" She can't really think that I care about that money. Vicky Yan's gaze was fierce, and she kicked the woman down to the ground. "I can give you anything you can give, and even what you can't give. Ivy Lou, your belated heartfelt feelings are worth less than grass. If you continue to pester Jason Song, don't blame me for being impolite." Ivy Lou was stung by her words, her eyes instantly turning crimson red, glaring hatefully at Vicky Yen. Vicky Yen didn't take her seriously at all, and just pulled me by the hand and was about to leave. Ivy Lou suddenly rushed up and wanted to hit Vicky Yen. Luckily, Vicky Yen reacted quickly and a single kick sent her tumbling into the rainwater. Ivy Lou was like a madwoman, completely disregarding her image. Struggling to get up, she still wanted to attack Vicky Yen, but was stopped by the security guards who arrived on time. They quickly pinned her down to the ground, and she was unable to get up. We were both startled, and we hugged each other to console one another. Ivy Lou saw our intimacy and the gloom in her eyes deepened, like a ferocious beast imprisoned and desperately trying to break free from its cage to pounce on and bite Vicky Yen. We quickly left that place of trouble. On the day I married Vicky Yen, a major accident occurred. I stand at the end of the red carpet, waiting for the grand doors to open, waiting for the bride to walk towards me. However, no matter how many times the host called, the large gate remained motionless. I was startled, and quickly called Vicky Yen. The phone rang several times before it was finally answered, but the voice on the other end was not Vicky Yen's. "Hello, Jason Song." The voice that came over the phone was Ivy Lu's chilling voice. "Ivy Lu. Where is Vicky Yen? Vicky Yen. She is sleeping soundly next to me. Ivy Lu kidnapped Vicky Yen." I was instantly flustered. "What did you do to her? What do you want to do?" She chuckled lightly. "Don't worry, when you arrive, I'll send you the address. Oh, by the way, don't call the police, otherwise I'm not sure what will happen." I didn't even have time to change into my formal attire, and I rushed to this place as quickly as possible. "This is a cafe." I soon saw Ivy Lu. I rushed over furiously. "What are you trying to do? If anything happens to Vicky Yen, you and I will never be done." She chuckled self-deprecatingly. "Do you remember where this is?" I looked at her angrily and did not want to respond. She continued talking to herself. "This is where we first met." She pointed to the bar counter in front. "And you were standing there, so tall and handsome, and I noticed you right away." Her eyes were moist. "I had thought that we would have a good ending, but why have we become this way? I will not be polite, because you have personally destroyed our future." She wiped away a tear. "Yes, it was ultimately my mistake." I interrupted her solitary melancholy. "Where is Vicky Yen? If you want to see her so much, then come with me." Ivy Lu took me to an abandoned factory, where the smell of dust was everywhere, and the buildings looked precarious, with the risk of collapsing at any moment. She took me to an extremely secluded corner. I saw Vicky Yen. Vicky Yen, bound in the corner, with her mouth sewn shut with countless strips of tape. Tears suddenly welled up in my eyes. She was still wearing the carefully prepared wedding dress, which was her favorite wedding dress, but now it had turned gray and tattered. "It's all because of me. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't be going through this torment." Vicky Yen. Vicky Yen, who seemed somewhat disoriented, immediately looked towards me after hearing my call. I wanted to run over there but was held back by Ivy Lu's assistant. "There are ways to save her, but you have to agree to one thing." "What's the matter?" "Let's get married at the Civil Affairs Bureau right now." My heart was in turmoil. I didn't expect her to go to such great lengths just to marry me. "If you do this, even if we get married, it will have no legal effect." She stared at me intently, her eyes filled with unyielding determination. "I just want you to marry me." Vicky Yen heard our conversation, shaking her head vigorously while crying. I knew she definitely wouldn't agree to me doing this. Just as I was still hesitating, Ivy Lu gave a signal to his subordinates. The burly man next to her immediately pulled out a fruit knife and unhesitatingly threw it towards Vicky Yen. I'm panicked. "No." The knife spun countless times in the air, finally piercing the pillar behind Vicky Yen, less than a centimeter from her temple. I and Vicky Yen heaved a sigh of relief. I looked at Vicky Yen, who was terrified and sweating profusely, with a sense of lingering unease, and ultimately chose to compromise. "Okay, I'll agree to that. Are you two getting married voluntarily?" The Civil Affairs Bureau staff looked at us suspiciously. "Of course, it's voluntary." Ivy Lu glared at me. I bowed my head. It was voluntary. "Good. The staff have confirmed the details, and they are about to stamp it with the seal in hand." "Don't move." A booming voice suddenly came from the entrance. "Police officer." The heavy stone in my heart suddenly dropped to the ground, and I felt much more relaxed. Just 1 hour ago, I secretly called the police while going home to find my ID. The fact that the police can come here to arrest Ivy Lu shows that Vicky Yen has most likely been rescued. The police quickly subdued Ivy Lu and placed handcuffs on her wrist. After confirming the safety of the scene, as expected, Vicky Yen rushed out of the police car and hugged me. She cried and said to me, "Jason Song, I thought I would never see you again. I patted her back sympathetically. No problem, it's over. Later, under the investigation of the police, it was also discovered that Ivy Lou's company was involved in a large amount of illegal trading and money laundering. She was sentenced to nearly 10 years in prison. Before the execution, she requested to see me. I refused her. Because I need to prepare for my wedding. The wedding was very grand and was unexaggeratedly referred to by the media as the wedding of the century. Vicky Yen bought the front page headlines of all the news. She said she wanted people all over the world to witness our love. Compared to my previous 2 weddings, this wedding went very smoothly. When I lay with Vicky Yen at night, I still felt that this all seemed unreal. Vicky Yen noticed I was acting strangely and asked, "What's wrong? Where are you not feeling well?" I tightly hugged her, not wanting to let go for a moment, burying my head in the crook of her neck. "No, I feel a bit sorry for you. If it weren't for me, there wouldn't have been so much trouble, and I wouldn't have caused her so much trouble." Vicky Yen hugged me and said softly, "Silly, those things were done by bad people, how could you be blamed?" She cupped my face and gently kissed my forehead, the corners of my eyes, the tip of my nose, and finally my lips. When I was dazed and confused, I heard her say, "I love you, Jason Song." I also heard some news about Leo Gu. It is said that he was found not to be the biological son of the Gu family, but rather the son of a former nanny they had hired. The nanny had, for her own personal gain, switched the children of the 2 families. Leo Gu fell from grace overnight. The former crown prince of the entertainment circle has become the most wanted thief. Gu's family used every means to suppress the nanny's family, and Leo Gu has since disappeared. 2 years after getting married, Vicky Yen became pregnant. When she handed me the report card, my mind went blank. I joyfully picked her up by the waist and twirled her around several times. "I'm going to be a dad. I'm going to be a dad." Vicky Yen scolded me and hit my shoulder, saying that I'm an adult and still so immature. "You too, why would I let you go to the hospital for such a big thing? I don't want to wait until it's confirmed to give you a surprise." Vicky Yen continued to work even after becoming pregnant. In the earlier months, she would go to the office on time every day. Later, when her pregnancy became visible, she worked from home as it was more convenient for her. When the amniotic fluid broke, she was still handling the documents. Luckily, we sent her to the hospital in advance to prepare for childbirth, otherwise I really wouldn't know how anxious I would have become. I was pacing nervously outside the delivery room. I don't know how long it was, but the door to the delivery room finally opened, and as soon as the doctor came out, I went over to him. "Doctor, how is it going?" "The surgery was very successful, it's a girl, both the mother and the child are safe." I breathed a huge sigh of relief. Thank you, doctor." I took a glance at the child and placed her in the mother-in-law's arms, eager to enter the delivery room. My heart aches when I see Vicky Yen. She lay there quietly, the childbirth having drained all her energy, her face pale and lifeless. The renowned Mr. Yen, the company president, has never experienced such hardship. My tears couldn't help but flow down. I gently caressed her cheek, afraid that if I wasn't careful, I would hurt her. "Does it hurt?" Vicky Yen slowly raised her hand and wiped the tears from my face. "I'm not in pain, but you, how old are you?" Still crying and whining. I took her hand and gently kissed it. "We will never have children again. My daughter looks very much like Vicky Yen, and I love her very much. I can't bear to miss any of her life events. Because I was an orphan from a young age, without the love of parents, I also spent a long time without the love of the person I cherished. Therefore, I don't want my daughter to experience this kind of pain." The process of accompanying her growth made me feel like I was accompanying the growth of Vicky Yen in her childhood. They look alike, and their personalities are also very similar. Gentle yet not resolute, self-confident yet stubborn. I love them very much, and they love me too. That's enough. 10 years after our marriage, one day our family was playing at an amusement park. I saw a familiar figure. She wore a bright orange sanitation uniform, stooping to clean up the garbage on the ground. Daughter tugs at my hand. Dad, what are you looking at? I came to my senses. Daddy probably saw an old friend. My daughter innocently asked me, why doesn't Dad go and say hello? I was just about to refuse, but my daughter pulled me to run in that direction. I looked to Vicky Yin for help. She came over and said, let's go together. It's all in the past. My daughter rushed over and helped Ivy Lou pick up the litter on the ground and throw it into the nearby trash can. Ivy Lou wanted to thank the little girl, but unexpectedly saw us. She immediately averted her gaze, covering her face as if trying to pretend not to recognize us. She looks much older. Apparently, since she went to prison, her parents have publicly announced that they have cut off relations with her, and they have also adopted a daughter, treating that girl as the true Willow family heiress, nurturing and cultivating her, as if they had never had a daughter before. Her friends and family avoid her at all costs. Overnight, she went from being the untouchable heir of the Liu family to a hunted rat on the street. After being released from prison, she had no home to return to and could only take on various part-time jobs to make a living. The young lady who has never done manual labor since childhood must be facing difficulties in every job she takes on after being released from prison. This is probably not the first job she has taken on. Ivy Lou, long time no see. We greeted her. She realized that we had recognized her, and she had nowhere to hide, so she lowered her hand from her face and bowed her head very low. It's been a long time. Her voice had also changed, becoming hoarse and ragged. Aunt, hello. The clear and crisp voice of the daughter broke the eerie silence among the three of us. Ivy Lou paused for a moment and looked at the little girl. Is this your daughter? Yes, I have been 8 years old. Ivy Lou suddenly had tears in her eyes, and it took her a while to speak again. It's very cute. I smiled and said, thank you. There's nothing much for us to talk about. After a few words I said we need to go play the project, and I bid her farewell. After walking a certain distance, I turned back and saw Ivy Lou still standing there stupidly, so I squatted down and said a few words to my daughter. The daughter then obediently went and bought an ice cream, ran back with it, and gave it to Ivy Lou. Vicky Yin looked at her daughter's actions and asked me puzzledly, what did you say to my daughter? I had her give that aunt an ice cream. Vicky Yin nodded, okay, it's so hot today. I actually also had my daughter send a message to Ivy Lou. Live well. The daughter soon came back and took my hand. Dad, I don't know what happened to that auntie. She started crying after I said that. I asked her what was wrong, but she didn't say anything. I had to help her wipe her tears. I squeezed her small hand. Is that so? My little sweetheart did a great job. The next day, I saw a news report. A sanitation worker who worked at an amusement park swallowed a large number of sleeping pills at home and died after failed resuscitation efforts.